Listen, bro. Get off.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. Today's video comes to us from the Merced County, California Sheriff's YouTube page. Now, I first learned of this incident while watching a self-defense channel's breakdown of the incident, and it honestly made my blood boil, and I figure it's going to do the same thing to you, so I will advise you to use your discretion. If uses of force bother you, this might be one you want to sit out of. But it's important that we see this stuff so that we can spread awareness and understand what is happening in the institution of law enforcement in 2024. In the video, there are two deputies, one unnamed as of yet, who is the lead officer conducting a DUI investigation for a crash. Sergeant Dustin Witt is the backup officer, and he's also the supervising officer. They're talking with the driver who's suspected of DUI and has crashed his vehicle. His name is Lewis Jackson. Everything's calm up to a certain point, and then Mr. Jackson gets frustrated with something that Sergeant Witt said to his girlfriend. And so Mr. Jackson starts to take issue and sort of confront Sergeant Witt, and that's when the use of force unfolds. So let's take a look, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Hello, I'm Vern Warnke, Sheriff Coroner for Merced County. On March 11th, 2023, our deputies responded to an incident which resulted in use of force. Through our supervisory review process, we were made aware that the use of force was applied by a sheriff sergeant. Based upon that, we immediately started an internal affairs investigation and requested the Merced County District Attorney's Office to review this incident for a possible criminal investigation. I felt it was of extreme importance to share this incident with our community as soon as I was able to, not only to be transparent, but also to show the actions taken by one of our staff members. I want to be clear that this incident was isolated and does not reflect the actions of the rest of our agency. Typically, in other critical incident videos, we would narrate what was observed. However, at the recommendation of the Merced County District Attorney's Office and due to pending criminal proceedings, we will not be narrating this video. The following video may be disturbing to some viewers, so viewer discretion is advised.
What's going on, man?
How you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, I'll see you when you get down.
So what happened?
I tried to take Belcher, honestly, for a short way to go down here, but honestly, this road, I swear, I just didn't even know where I was going.
Okay, honest with you. Okay, I'm gonna be transparent with you. Okay.
Right.
All right. Just because due to the condition that the car went through the fence and stuff, and you did say you had been drinking, but okay, I'm gonna have
I'm going to jail. There's no need for a sobriety test or nothing like that. I'm a yeah.
You said wait right here, okay? So look, they're gonna do their test, okay?
But I'm just wondering, I'm not to waste your guys' time. There's no need for sobriety test. I'm drunk.
Okay.
I've been drinking. There's obviously
a licensed driver to drive the car, right?
Not necessarily. You really need
That's not even crazy. For you to get at my girl like that.
Okay, hey, do me a favor. Hey,
Stop!
hey, bro. Listen, bro. Get off. It's okay, we got him. We got him. Okay. Place your hands behind your back.
Put your hands behind your back now.
Or you're gonna get another tase. Listen. Hold me. You got him? Okay.
Roll over. Partner, roll over. Roll over.
Hey,
Stop playing like that and roll over.
roll over.
Come on. Come on. First set. We start 11:41. Roll over. Roll over.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, sir.
Sit up.
I'm sorry, sir.
Sit up.
I'm sorry.
Sit up. Sit up.
The next clip is another angle of the incident taken from Sergeant Witt's body-worn camera. The camera was activated by the taser deployment. Due to this, the audio is delayed in this footage.
It's okay, we got him.
I got him.
Okay. Raise your hands behind your back.
Put your hands behind your back now.
Are you gonna get another tase?
Merced 11. We're 4:15 with this individual taser deployment. Roll over. Partner, roll over. Roll over.
Hey,
Stop playing like that and roll over.
roll over.
Come on. Come on. Merced 11. You start 11:41. Roll over.
I'm sorry.
Roll over.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, sir.
Roll
I'm
over.
sorry, sir.
Sit up.
I'm sorry.
Sit up. Sit up.
An internal affairs investigation was conducted by a third-party entity that was not part of the Merced County Sheriff's Office. After the completion of that investigation, Sergeant Witt resigned his position with our agency. Sergeant Witt's actions are unacceptable and does not reflect the training and professional standards taught by the Merced County Sheriff's Office. While I am extremely disappointed with how this incident was handled by Sergeant Witt, I am encouraged that it was because of our own internal use of force review process that this incident was discovered. The Merced County District Attorney's Office conducted the criminal investigation and has filed the following charges against Dustin Witt. Penal Code Section 149, which is battery by a peace officer. Penal Code Section 245A, Parent 4, it's assault likely to cause great bodily injury and enhancement for both crimes causing great bodily injury. We at the Sheriff's Office strive to be professional in all aspects of our enforcement duties. The type of behavior seen in this video is not acceptable now, nor will it be in the future. As your sheriff, you entrust me to make sure that our actions are reflective of the quality and behavior that our citizens deserve and expect. It breaks my heart to have to share this incident with you, but rest assured this is not something I take lightly. We will continue to review our use of force policies and training to continue to improve how we protect Merced County. Thank you.
I don't know if you guys watched the timestamps of the body cam, but I did. They are not actually synced together. If you look at both of their different body cams, they're about 30 seconds off from one another. But what's important is that Mr. Jackson began being sort of combative with Sergeant Witt, and then in response, the primary deputy draws his taser and incapacitates Mr. Jackson with the taser at around the 15:58 mark of the primary officer's body cam. Almost immediately after Mr. Jackson goes to the ground in response to the taser, Sergeant Witt delivers 4 soccer-style head kicks to Mr. Jackson as he's lying incapacitated, defenseless, and face down on the ground. Then Sergeant Witt delivers 2 curb stomps to the back of Jackson's head, and worst of all, adjusts his foot and holds it against Jackson's head as he's unconscious and without medical attention for an additional 90 seconds. The primary deputy allows this sergeant to keep his foot on Jackson's head for the entire 90 seconds. He cuffs his limp body, and he has to know that Jackson is not responsive. He was just amped up and physically confronting them. And now he's doing nothing. He then starts digging around for the taser probes, and the whole time Jackson is face down and under the weight of Sergeant Witt's foot. Notice that Jackson's face is under the cruiser rocker panel, and if you look around the scene, you can tell that they're in an area where there's sand. And for all we know, Jackson's face could be buried in a heap of sand, and he could be being pressed down into it for 90 seconds. Guys, it takes 7 to 8 seconds to separate a person from consciousness with a choke or strangulation. It only takes 15 seconds of strangulation to cause a stroke. 30 seconds of strangulation can cause cardiac arrest, and 4 to 5 minutes of strangulation can cause brain death. It's very fortunate that we're not talking about an actual homicide in this particular case, and that Mr. Jackson appears to have been relatively uninjured. But I do believe it's not just Sergeant Witt who should be charged here. Witt should be charged with 1 count of felony assault for each of the 6 strikes that he levied on Mr. Jackson, and 1 count for the continuous pressure of his foot being on the back of Mr. Jackson's neck. Because if you watch, Witt actually had to make an additional adjustment of his foot after the last stomp to keep the pressure on the back of Jackson's neck. That deserves an additional count. But in my opinion, not only should Sergeant Witt be charged with felony assault, but the lead deputy should be charged as well. He should be charged as a principal in the felony assault for the time that he spent fiddling with the taser wires and cutting the taser wires and failing to render aid and allowing Witt to stand on Jackson's neck the whole time. And if we look at the accessory after the fact statute under California Penal Code 32, he probably should be charged with accessory after the fact for all 6 strikes Witt made if it's true that he didn't report Witt's conduct and it was discovered routinely through an impromptu administrative review. If we look at California Penal Code 32, it says every person after a felony has been committed who harbors, conceals, or aids a principal in such felony with the intent that said principal may avoid or escape arrest, trial, conviction, or punishment, having knowledge that said principal has committed such felony or has been charged with such felony or convicted thereof, is an accessory to such felony. So as far as I know, as of now, the primary deputy's not been charged. Witt was allowed to resign in June before this ever came to the public forefront, and Witt has subsequently pled not guilty in the criminal proceedings, which are moving forward as far as I know. Now remember that we used the factors established in the Supreme Court case of Graham versus Connor to determine the objective reasonableness of the level of force used in arresting or detaining a person. So under the Graham factors, this is a pretty easy case in my opinion. Just the eyeball test alone says this is objectively unreasonable. Remember under Graham, they're looking at 3 different factors and they're looking at them at the time that the force is used. And you have to keep in mind there are 2 separate force incidents here. You have the taser force that was in response to the resistance that Jackson was given and him sort of marching towards Witt. That's a separate use of force than Witt's use of force, which happened after Jackson was incapacitated and on the ground. So under the Graham factors, they look at 3 factors. Number 1 is the severity of offense. Well, again, you have DUI and assault on a police officer in consideration of the first use of force, but that's not really the one we're concerned about. The active resistance and potential assault on a police officer would be appropriate for the use of a taser, and that's what happened, so that's fine. But what we're actually looking at here is the secondary use of force by Sergeant Witt, and in that particular use of force, there was no new offense. He was already incapacitated. So the use of force after he was incapacitated is really no different than him being handcuffed. So that force under the Graham factors would be objectively unreasonable. Now the second Graham factor is whether the suspect posed an immediate threat to the police officer. Again, 2 separate uses of force here. In the first one, he was likely a threat to them at the time of the taser deployment, but he definitely wasn't afterwards. So any force done afterwards under the idea that he was a threat would just make no sense at all. So the second factor would obviously lend itself more towards objective unreasonableness as well. And then the third Graham factor is whether the suspect was actively resisting or evading. Again, before the taser deployment, Jackson was actively resisting and the force was reasonable. But then when Witt started kicking him and stomping him, he obviously wasn't resisting. He had been rendered, again, incapacitated by the taser. So the third factor under Graham also lends itself to being objectively unreasonable as it relates to Witt's use of force. Now, an additional consideration here is that the 6 kicks or stomps to the head is actually an escalation to deadly force. We could easily, as I mentioned before, be talking about a person who died as a result of this. And that was completely unjustified. And I actually even think that had he had any injuries at all a prosecutor could have made a straight-faced argument that this was attempted murder because of the level of force used and the complete indifference to his condition afterwards by both officers. In closing, I'm really surprised there hasn't been a 1983 case for excessive force and failure to render medical aid brought by Mr. Jackson here. As much as I'd like to give the sheriff a hand for bringing this incident to the public's attention, I don't think he did it because he wanted to or in the interest of transparency. I'd like to point out the fact that this incident happened on March 11th of 2023. The Sheriff's Department began an internal review in June after what the sheriff described as seeing the video as part of its internal review process, and then they released this incident to the public in August of last year, some 5 months after it happened. Now, I don't know what happened, guys, but y'all tell me whether I'm reading this wrong. Either one, the primary deputy in this case immediately told his supervisory staff that he witnessed his sergeant feloniously assault an incapacitated person, and they didn't do an internal investigation until 3 months later, or somebody somewhere was doing random spot checks of body cam, found this footage, and then began the investigation, and the primary deputy reported nothing. It has to be one of the two. It can't be anything else. It was either immediately reported and they didn't do anything, or it was noticed by somebody and then it was like, oh yeah, by the way, that happened. Notice also that the sheriff mentioned that this was an internal review conducted by a third-party group not associated with the Merced Sheriff's Department. So it could have been like a watchdog group or some sort of an oversight board that noticed this and brought it to their attention. So what it seems to me is that someone noticed this and was like, oh my God, this is very, very bad and we need to do damage control. Not, we need to do the right thing for Mr. Jackson. We need to figure out what his medical bills were. We need to reach out, nothing like that. Just, if the public gets a hold of this, they're just going to be so upset. And, it's all about the cover-up and about damage control. Nevertheless, the fact that the primary deputy still has a job and didn't get charged is unbelievable to me. I even saw the channel who I originally saw the story on praising the primary deputy because he reached out and grabbed the sergeant's hand and said, "Stop, we got him." Well, okay, but that's not enough. His failure to get Witt's foot off the back of Jackson's neck, his failure to render immediate medical aid, and his actions in covering up after the fact make him criminally culpable, in my opinion. And I also think that the prosecutor's office is sandbagging this case as well. And all of these executive leaders, from the sheriff to the district attorney, should have their feet held to the fire by the public for this. I mean, again, we have 4 kicks to the underside, soccer style, we have 2 stomps, and we have a 90-second hold on this guy's head. Each of those are separate counts of assault. Why he's only charged with 1 count of assault by a police officer and 1 felony assault and nothing else for the primary officer is crazy to me. Anyway, that's all for this one, guys. Hope you got something out of it. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Please check out some of the other videos on the channel. Leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.